$30,000 a year, we're gonna have to hire a bigger crew in order to do that. It doesn't pencil out on the back of the envelope thing, it sounds like. But the county maybe. So look forward to maybe well, it's gonna be a couple of years now, right? So you have something to work on. You heard the concerns of the council. Council, how are we gonna treat this item?
Consent.
Consent it is. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
All right. So as promised, next we're going to pivot here to item B1. I'd like to welcome the CEO of Kitsap Mental Health Services, Ms. Monica Bernhardt, and Bremerton Housing Authority Executive Director Jill Stanton for a presentation on the hybrid shelter update from community partners. Ladies, just a reminder, nice and loud.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
I know they have a lot of material to get through, so I don't know if we want to hold all questions at the end or just.
So I think we're
establish,
going to play that by ear.
Okay.
What would you prefer? Do you want to do the whole presentation? I'm sure you've done a dry run.
I think we would like to do the presentation. We have done a dry run, but if there are questions, that you feel like you need to ask as we're going through, this is informal. We're very willing to do it that way. But yeah, we do have a lot to get through, so.
Okay, so we have approximately an hour set aside for this. It's an important matter, but it's still got other items on the agenda. So whenever you're ready, we're ready.
I'm just looking at how I share my screen.
Yeah, I might be able to help.
Did you, are they promoted to,
Are you in the Zoom?
I'm in the Zoom. Are they promoted to panelists? Here he is.
No, they're not.
Okay, we're gonna promote them to a panelist.
Jill's this year. Promote the panel.
Well, not yet.
Yeah, must be yours.
Did everybody hear that? That was not my fault.
Okay,
Said that louder.
Yeah. Good.
you just been promoted, so you should be good.
Okay, so. Share where you should. Yeah.
There we go.
So thank you. Also joining us is Bree Medley. She is from Grant Design and she's going to be part of the presentation. So she's been on our team since pretty much since the beginning, but has now been hired as our architect firm. So I just want to start by thanking all of you for this opportunity to share. I know it's been a long time and you've been very patient, and hopefully we can explain why some of that has occurred. But bottom line is that this team has been working really, really hard. I want to thank Monica, Joe, Tony, as you know who they're with, their staff and their boards, who I really feel are the pillars of this community, have supported this project and supported us and paid for our time as we've met literally every week. Also, the county, Doug Washburn and Carl Ford, they've also been there the whole time. Jeff Coughlin, obviously, as your representative, has served every week, and we've been very appreciative of everything he brought. But I want you to also know that it's gone beyond the people represented here.
I can't hear you at all.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Turn the fan off behind you or turn it down. Yeah. I can hear you, so it's not that.
Yeah, it's probably the distraction behind.
I think it was bothering Councilor Omar. Just shut that fan off. There you go.
Okay.
Much better.
If it gets too hot, I have a suggestion. We could put one fan here and
Double up
one farther.
chairs.
This is much better. Go ahead.
This is much better.
People just taking off shirts.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I was thanking people. So I just wanted you to know that though it goes beyond this group. There's been several organizations throughout this community that have helped us, consulted with us, several shelters, Salvation Army, Eagles Wing, just so many different organizations that have been a part of this. And they're not just in this community, also outside of this community. We've gone to Everett, we've gone to Seattle, Lehigh. People are very excited that Kitsap is doing something to house the they're excited and they want to help us. And then just finally, I think I have to recognize that there is grassroots organizations, faith-based organizations that have been doing this work for a very long time. And they do it without getting paid. I mean, I get paid, right? It's still my heart, but I'm getting paid. These people are giving their time, their resources. They know their names. They mourn them when they die. And they have to be recognized and they have to be consulted. And so I want them to know that we hear them and we are grateful to them. And we wouldn't be here today without them. So that's where I'm going to start. In January of 2023, we came to you all and as requested, we provided an option, this hybrid option. We started with this vision and this vision has not changed. And I thought it would be important for us to read it today. We said we wanted to work together as a community with our city and our county to provide shelter in Bremerton that provides a pathway to permanent housing developed around individual needs, human dignity, safety and security, and a holistic approach to healing and health and overcoming barriers to successfully live in permanent quality housing without causing further trauma through the process. And we have tried to do that. So I hope you can see that today. Monica is going to take the next few slides. And again, we are happy to take questions. So we can make it a discussion.
Well, hello, everybody. Monica Bernard, CEO at Cited Mental Health Services, and I echo Jill's thanks to all of you for even being open to looking at this project. I think we all can look back 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the downtown core had an explosion of unsheltered homelessness. And it didn't just come out of nowhere, but it certainly took hold a few years ago. And this community knew something had to be done. You had residents that were concerned, you had businesses that were concerned, you had council members. And so the city, nonprofits, the council looked at this and said, what can be done here? And us as nonprofit organizations came together knowing that not one single entity could solve this problem alone. I want to echo also what Jill said about the Salvation Army. Some of you may know that if you go back 10 years, we didn't have a year-round shelter in this community. We had stand-up winter shelters that opened when the weather got cold. And there was a time when we knew we needed to get there, and the Salvation Army stepped in. And it was supposed to be a short-term option, and it became an option year after year after year. And they really deserve our deepest gratitude as a community. They saved lives over this past decade, and I want to echo and acknowledge that. But their system was never designed to be a long-term, low-barrier shelter where people could stay on a continuous basis, not have to check out in the morning, and not have to check in at night, having on-site services. That is what's really needed in this community. If we are going to help people move from a place of despair and unsheltered homelessness to a place of stability, and perhaps even, in the ideal scenario, people move into a more permanent housing solution. So that is what got us here. And that's why the nonprofit organizations came together, because we each have our respective expertise. We run housing at Cited Mental Health Services, but our specialty is providing, mental health and substance use treatment services. Jill runs housing. Their specialty is in development. KCR's specialty is in housing and employment and Head Start. And then St. Vincent de Paul has a strong history of running shelters in this community. So between these four anchor agencies, what you have is individually, each of these agencies brings decades of experience to this problem. And I think what I want to leave you with is this understanding that we're drawing from that expertise. We're not just coming with this idea of maybe this will work. We are really pulling on that, and we know that really any solution that we choose needs to be a continuous stay where people do not have to check out at the end of the day. They need to have access to on-site services, and they need to have access to pathways to permanent housing and mental health and substance use treatment services. So we had two tasks ahead of us. First and foremost was to find a location that was suitable for this, but simultaneous with that was also identifying what does our funding plan look like. So location, this is really critical. Sometimes there's this thought, well, why don't we, folks that are unsheltered, why don't we put them way over there? And the reality is they are part of our community. We need a response. We need a solution for them in our community, but we need one that doesn't keep them isolated. We need a location that is close to transit. We need a site that is large enough, not just to put a shelter, but to be able to make a sense of community that has safety measures and security measures in place. We need it to be a location that facilitates service provision, not just by Kitsap Mental Health Services, but potentially by Peninsula Community Health Services, bringing their medical van, for example, or other community providers. We need something close to utilities, and it's very important, even though we're going to be providing food on site, there's going to be transitional housing and ultimately long-term, even some permanent housing we're looking at for this site. We need access to food and access to education and workforce resources. And parking, as you know, I used to think we didn't need as much as we do, but with all the service providers and everybody else, staff coming and going, parking is really an issue as well. So we had a lot of requirements for this site. We looked at a number of sites, and for a number of reasons, we weren't able to go in that direction. But we think we found a site that will be, I think, very well suited for the requirements that we just laid out. And Jill will talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. So, no,
Okay.
So, yeah, as Monica said, we were incredibly intentional in finding the site. And as much as my husband and I are going to miss running around on the weekends, looking at sites, I'm glad to have this behind us. But it took a long time, right? And we found this site. I think most of you know, but it is in District 2. It's right off Sheridan and Wheaton, 5 acres. And it's been for sale for a very long time. So we know it's not the perfect site, but I got to tell you, I don't know that there is a perfect site. We have options, and I think that this is a good one. It can serve what we need right now, but it also preserves land that can serve as affordable housing into the future. And having the housing authority own this land ensures that it will be used for that in whatever capacity. So, once we found this land, we began this negotiation process with the seller that was had challenges that we were not anticipating. Usually you make an offer, your offer accepted, you buy it, you use it for the purpose you want to use it for. That was not the case with this seller. This seller wanted to ensure that certain things, that activities on this land either happened or didn't happen. In the end, while that process took a lot of time, I also want to say this seller wanted to be a part of this project, which was very cool because we didn't at first go into that thinking that they would. But Monica really led this part of explaining what we were trying to do as a community with our county, with our city, with each other, basically with our entire community. And they wanted to be. Of course, we had a great idea of how they could do that. So we started talking about, the funding challenges, and we initially asked them to donate the property, and they were open to that. At least the people that we were talking to, but in the end, I think for various reasons, they decided that wasn't an option, but instead they deeply discounted this. So we're going to go over those numbers, but I just wanted you to know that this process took so long. And while we are trying to have as much transparency as we possibly could, we didn't have anything to share until we had something to share. But where we're at now is we have a signed purchase and sale agreement. We have been working through all of the due diligence, and it's significant. But we're nearing the end of that. We haven't found anything that would stop us from going forward. And we believe that this property will close in early November, if not sooner. Once the seller has a 30-day waiting period, but they can waive that. We, as a housing authority, are comfortable that we're ready to move forward. There's a couple last-minute questions we're waiting to have answered, but we haven't run into any problems, and so we're ready to do that. Some of the things that we know are required for site development have already started. So that's the timeline for the property. And before we kind of show you a possible vision for this, I want to talk about the money. So this is the shelter capital cost. Land acquisition, the property was appraised at 2.4 million. Land development, we're estimating about 2 million. The tiny home community part of this, we're estimating at about 1.4 million. And then the small congregate shelter piece, we're estimating at about 1 million. So total of 6.8 million. Bree will talk more about this. These are initial estimates, and they're contingent on, some pretty important decisions that will have to be made by both us and the city as we move forward. But these are the capital costs as we're estimating them today. And these are the resources that we have. You might remember when we started this, the city had 1.3 million allocated, and the county had 1.5 million allocated. Since that time, as I mentioned earlier, the seller had agreed to discount the price by 900,000. And then we were awarded in the 2025 round of SIA funds, 1.5 million primarily for the tiny home pallet community shelter. And then the state has a program, it's called Land Acquisition Loan Funding. And they were very excited about this. In fact, when we thought we were going to get the land donated, they were disappointed because they wanted to be a part of it. We were not disappointed, but we were like, okay, because this is a loan. It does have to be paid back, but it's got very good terms. 1% interest rate. You don't have to make payments for a number of years. You have time to figure that out. So we believe that was a good option. The BHA Board of Commissioners agreed to take on that liability, and we have completed the application, and the application has been approved. So with these resources, they add up to 6.7 million. Unfortunately, we were not awarded SIA funds in this last round. We are applying for Housing Trust Fund capital money, so we'll see. But we feel like if our estimates are anywhere close, our resources are equally close, and we're not worried about getting the shelter built as far as money is concerned. I think the next slide talks about operations. So operations was not, or the operational funding, I should say, was not for shelters. It's different than affordable housing, where we have rental income coming in, so we can project well into the future what funding for operations is going to look like. That's not the same for a shelter. A shelter gets funded on an annual basis, sometimes 2 years, and you apply for it as you get close to that. So while it certainly has been a stress, it hasn't been something that we could really have a big plan for until now. Till now, when we finally are at the point that we can see this being built, and somebody's going to need to operate it, and there's going to be costs associated with that. Our shelter is similar to other shelters, but different. It is different. So in estimating what this would cost, we did a few things. We reached out to other shelters primarily Everett Gospel Mission in Lehigh, and we were provided with their costs of running very similar shelters. We have Pendleton Place, we have Evergreen Bright Star, we have Salvation Army, we have Kitsap Rescue Mission, so we have some local shelters that we were also able to draw upon and see what their costs were. And so we are estimating, we have details on this, but this is, high level, that it could cost up to $3 million annually to run this shelter. What you get with that is 24/7 security, on-site staffing, food, site costs like utilities, insurance, building maintenance, landscaping, that sort of thing. And then none of the 4 organizations that are here represented tonight will be the operators of the shelter. We will have a separate operator. We've already got an RFP ready to go out. We've had people that have expressed interest, but there will need to be oversight over that operator. So funding to do that would be included in this. So that's the cost. I also just want to point out, though, that other things, as Monica mentioned, have to be a part of the shelter. Services, Kitsap Mental Health Services, Peninsula Community Health Services. We need coordinated entry. We need foundational community support. We need the voucher program, right? The voucher program that we explained when we first started this, where we actually take referrals from the shelters and we clear shelter beds. That already has started. That's been going for well over a year. And last year, in a 6-month period that we analyzed, we cleared 33 beds out of our local shelters with people who were ready for housing, but they just needed the voucher. We were able to do that. In addition to that, organizations that maybe don't provide the typical shelter that we're all used to, but like Eagles Wings is a very good example. They provide housing, shared housing, and they have people that are also ready for independent living. And so they partnered with us and we were clearing their beds. And so this was working on a scale that is almost unbelievable. Traditionally, the vouchers are issued through a wait list. So we open a wait list, everybody applies, and then we just draw names. People don't have a lot of support. So it's very low success rate when you do it that way. In this 6-month period that we looked at, we drew over 800 people off the wait. And of those 800 people, we housed 40. We got about 190 referrals from our partnering agencies. We housed 88 of those people. So that works. And I couldn't believe it when I saw the numbers. So part of what we're saying in this hybrid model, I don't want to lose sight of, permanent housing needs to be front and center on this. It has to be a piece of this. And so as your housing authority, we're committed to that and we're already at that. And for our service providers, like Kitsap Mental Health Services, they are not included in this $3 million operation, but they are including their services in their budget. So is Peninsula Community Health Services and many other organizations, KCR, doing the things that they're already funded to do so that this shelter is not burdened with additional costs for those services. It's a gift to this community. And I've never really seen partnerships like this anywhere that I've been to before. So potential, obviously we don't have everything worked out for how we're going to get this $3 million. That's part of what we're here to talk about. We know that in our county, there is a county shelter bed rate, and it varies depending on the type of bed that it is. So we will get that. The shelter will qualify for that. It'll probably bring in somewhere between $600,000 and $1 million a year for that. So that's there. That's a great start. We'll obviously, every year, the operators and DHA and St. Vincent de Paul will be responsible for going after funding, whether, whatever we qualify for. SIA maybe, I'm not sure exactly if that will cover operations yet, but certainly the mental health county funding at the 1/10 of 1%. Those are some of the options we have in this county. We are very much, hoping that the city of Bremerton will have an annual contribution, and possibly the county may be able to also have something in addition. And then there's the state of Washington Commerce grants that we would be looking at. And then obviously, our legislators have to be a part of this. And we are willing to seek out their help. And one of the things that we're really need from the city is the city to also seek out their help and to advocate for this shelter and this model. Whether it's our, local, state, or our federal representative. So we'll go after that. Charitable contributions. Tony Ives is been working, heavily on that. Might have some money out there, big or small. We'll take it all. And then the Department of Health also has some money that we will seek after. So
Go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, so, the Kitsap County and the city of Bremerton, contributed fairly equal amounts at the beginning of this, but I noticed that Kitsap County is not on your potential resources for operations.
well, the shelter bed is the county.
Okay.
And also the CF funding is flowed through the county, and the mental
County
health
shelter
1% is also flowed through the county. Now, obviously, we'll accept more, but but that is the county funds that's already there, so.
Are these funds that would be paid to any shelter anywhere in the county?
Yes, Carl, do you want to speak more to that?
Shelter bed rate. Yeah, we run shelters based on the shelter bed rate. So depending upon whether you're low barrier shelter or whether you're continuous stay, whether you're in navigation center, they're all different bed rates. They're comparable to other bed rates throughout the state. And then they're non-competitive. So we fund shelters first, and then what's left over will go to services. But the shelters are always prime for fund.
This is similar to paying for incarceration.
I would not know the answer to that question.
No, I mean, it's a similar process. Okay.
Carl, is there
like that.
is there capacity to add this to that program, or is it going to take from somebody else? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
No, we've already included Bremerton shelter in our funding for the year.
Right.
And so, and we want to make sure that it's all equal based on the number of beds. So it does, like for the Civic building, they have 75 beds. Salvation Army has 90 beds, so they're based on the bed rate for that. So it's equal within the size of the shelter.
Thank you.
Denise?
First round, right?
Well, you saw the
Okay.
presentation?
That, the bed rate money, does that come simply from county sources? Or meaning residents and taxes and all of that, or does that come through the state?
That comes through the state through the consolidated.
State funding.
Through the Department of Commerce.
State funding.
So,
Okay, Jennifer, and then we're gonna let the presentation continue.
sure, so for clarity, so that county shelter bed rate is also the same as, would there be different state of Washington commerce grants you're applying for outside of the bed rate, right? And then Department of Health additional bed allowance, that's completely in addition, right? Okay. And the CF funding, you said you weren't in the 2026 round? Is that what you were saying? Oh, I'm so sorry.
We applied for operations, we applied for capital, but we were really applying, to hopefully pay back that last loan from the
Okay.
state. But our backup plan was, if our costs overrun, we were gonna go back to the county and say, can we use that round of funding to, to supply gap funding for cost overruns? But yeah, we did, but we didn't get awarded that.
I'm
So
sorry
we're-
about that. Oh, okay. All right, thank you, that's all.
And so I think we're good. That's kind of what we want to share about funding. We're gonna just briefly talk about the next steps for operations and outreach, and Monica's gonna speak to that.
So in parallel with all the work that we've been doing, there was also work to develop an RFP and a model for operating the shelter, looking at what the staffing models were going to look like, what kind of security we're going to have on site, the meal programs, all of that. And it was consolidated into a request for proposal that is ready to go. So Joe Crane from St. Vincent de Paul took the lead on that. And so that is really the next step in operations, is once we have, we're ready to say go, we're going to start the RFP process for operations. outreach is equally important here. And it's something that we actually have some significant experience with. When we launched Pendleton Place, it opened in 2022. We had a significant outreach effort. I will forever be grateful to the city for the support that they gave us, the mayor, the support that he gave us. That was really important as part of that outreach. So not only did we look at what did other organizations do and how do we learn from them, because we absolutely did that, but our plan going forward is to be really intentional in terms of doing direct outreach, going to district meetings, hosting an open house, as many as we may need so that people can come and get their questions answered, potentially putting up a website. Our intention, and we recognize that the community is going to have questions, and we want to be there to answer those questions. When we did this kind of an outreach for Pendleton Place, it was really beneficial that we had representatives from the city planning department were there. Then a now chief of police, but he wasn't then, and he came there. So when people had community questions about public safety, some of those questions could be answered. We had the architect there. And so we stayed as long as there were questions. And that is our intention here. We really want to be transparent in our timelines, in our methodology, in our operating model. So outreach is going to be an incredibly important part of our process now going forward once the funding is secured. So as we've been moving forward in parallel on all these different levels, we've also been moving forward on design so that once we have the funding, we're ready to go with that. And so Jill, would you introduce Bree?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we hired Bree Medley probably a few months ago now to kind of build what this could look like. So we still have to do a community impact analysis. This could change, but it helped us. It's helped our boards, and we hope that it helps you to really see the potential of what this could look like. Bree, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then.
Sure. My name is Bree Medley. I'm with Brant Design Group. I've been involved in this project since the very get-go, before it even was a project. So I just want to also take one moment to, again, thank City Council as a community member for looking at this and saying, we want a solution to helping house the unhoused versus a Band-Aid and just a place to put people. That has been the constant as we have been going through looking for parcels, looking at properties, looking at buildings, because at the forefront of this is dignity. It is making sure that this process is different than anything we've seen, changing the narrative associated with shelter. People have an idea of what an emergency homeless shelter is based on what they see down on 6th, and understanding that Salvation Army has been doing everything they can to fill a stopgap that they are not set up to do. What we want to do now is we want to change what that looks like and what people think of when they think of an emergency shelter in this area specifically. So while we've been looking at parcels, one of the big things is making sure it's not jammed in there and it doesn't feel like it's an afterthought. We want to make sure that this feels like a community, that people walk by and aren't scared of it. They welcome this in their community. And to everyone's point here, community outreach is going to be very important. Understanding all of the groups who work with people currently experiencing homelessness, as well as the community that this shelter will be in, making them feel not only comfortable with this, but proud that this is in their neighborhood. The parcel that we have found gives us a really large breadth to work with because of the size of it. There was some discussion about being able to further develop this in the future with 5 acres. We don't need 5 acres, but what this gives us is the ability to buffer, provide some protection for both the people within the shelter, in the community, as well as the greater community at large. We don't have to be right against streets. We get to pull back. We get to plant this out. We get to make it feel very open and very inviting, a soft place to land for those who are coming in, but also a soft place to walk by and feel comfortable as they're going by this. So in this location on Sheridan at the intersection of Wheaton, the idea was to put the emergency shelters closer to the more busy intersection, away from the adjacent residential spaces, closer to the gas station, the SARS, the more commercial type feeling. But it also has a natural barrier and buffer that exists there right now with all of the natural landscaping that is there. We intend to build on that. So it's not necessarily something you're looking into. It feels like a very natural space. And then providing sort of a break between that and the tiny home village that we are creating. That starts to finger into the community a little bit more. There are a lot of elements associated with this parcel that are really wonderful. There are also parts of this parcel that are going to prove very, very difficult. The city, you guys, part of the comprehensive plan has a dedicated right-of-way hope for this parcel, so that there can be connection to Wheaton Way. This element could provide a very nice barrier between what would be the transitional housing to more permanent housing that would be right up against the existing residential developments that are there. So it really does create this beautiful continuum of housing that has been the cornerstone of this whole entire development. One of the other elements associated with this parcel that will be slightly difficult, part of it is the size of it and requirements associated with development standards. Oh, I was like, that's me. I'm like, it sounds. I like hearing myself behind myself. Sorry, well, I'm going to continue with the touchy-feely, and then we'll go into some of the additional issues coming up. A few items that we are looking to have here is lovely outdoor spaces for the community, so that while they are living in this space, whether it is for 3 days or 3 months, they have a place to call their own. Creating outdoor spaces both for recreation, but also for pets, for creating their own dynamic and a place to call home versus a place to call a bed. The idea being, you do want to come here very kind of low, soft lighting, not something big and bright and jail-like, if you will, feeling like a place you'd like to stop for a while. Having bike racks, creating planting areas, creating outdoor sitting areas. The idea being, this feels like a park when you are in it, and from the street, it also feels that way. But again, a place where you, even at night, if this is when you are entering, you feel really comfortable and really welcome and very safe. But as I mentioned, a large buffer from the street, because we do have a lot of space, providing that feeling of protection for everybody from that standpoint. So one of the things that we are coming up against with this parcel does have to do with the comprehensive plan, and this parcel being part of the Harrison Heights sub-area plan. There are a lot of development requirements associated with it. And based on the size of this site, we will have to come in and we would have to deal with some zoning design review board deviations, as well as for the development standards, as well as the design standards. The other part is this parcel is not included in the temporary encampment zoning language change that we just did. So the pros and cons, we weighed them over the course of looking at all of these parcels. And our hope is that City Council can help us a little bit here and have a discussion associated with a amendment to the comprehensive plan and possibly remove this parcel from the Harrison Heights sub-area plan and move it to either the DCC or general commercial. I'm not sure what that looks like, but it's, we're gonna ask the questions and see where they land. If we don't ask, we know what the answer is. So that's one of the items that will help streamline the timeline associated with getting this project through the permitting process, because that is one of the longest lead times that we are going to be dealing with. Has to do with DRB review and deviations of both development and design standards, as well as the zoning code language change. The city has consistently been on our side to help us with timelines, and they have very much streamlined our ability to get through some of this stuff. And so they have already met with us on multiple different occasions to review pre-submittal questions, seeing where we can land on things, and working with us to try and find different options and how we might approach these elements. And we are going to ask city council to also do that with us. Another part of this that is going to be not only a timing element, but also a financial impact is the public works requirements for frontage improvements. We're hoping to work with Public Works and the director to mitigate, given how much frontage this property does have, minimizing the cost of having to update all of the street frontage in exchange for some of this right-of-way dedication. So working with the city as our community partner, as yet another community partner to get this built, because again, the more money we put towards frontage, the less money we have towards operations or towards the development of these elements. And I know that that is the most important part, is providing a really, really safe, wonderful space and transition into permanent housing. Yeah, we can talk about the timeline.
Yeah. So the timeline that you're presenting.
Yep.
Is that based on the city trying to take this lot out of the comp plan, out of the Harrison Heights?
No.
So
This is based on us having to go through a zoning code amendment change for the language, going through DRB, going through the standard site plans. It doesn't have planning being done until August, because that's when the zoning code amendment changes. We would be running a little bit at risk with some of our permitting from the standpoint of the tiny home village can be separate from the pallet or from the shelter itself. So it's a very aggressive schedule. Do not get me wrong. I'm going to push as hard as I can to get as much leverage as I can with the city. They've been great. We're going to assume they're going to continue that. But we will be using a lot of review and permitting time running concurrently and not consecutively, which is the safe way to approach this. And that's why this currently is assuming that this stays within the Harrison Heights sub-area plan. That said, there's a lot of caveats to that, because if someone says absolutely not, you have to have that FAR requirement, this project's done, because we can't develop that.
It's the FAR.
It's a 0.45 minimum floor area ratio development for the site, and the 5-acre site at this moment in time. Again, we have a lot of opportunity here with the right of way to split this, and it's a wonderful element with being able to provide the city with the intent for the Harrison Heights sub-area plan, keeping a pedestrian element, creating that natural connection from Wheaton to Sheridan, and minimizing the size of the site. But for us, that FAR is going to be a pretty hard sell for us to be able to get it to work on this site. But yeah, floor area ratio. Okay, do we, again, one thing, the development standards can be deviated from, and the design review board can allow us a deviation from that.
And I think that a lot of these agencies and organizations and boards and are gonna be in your corner and wanting to do what we can to facilitate this 100%. I mean, we don't really have any other option, because when do our shelters close? May?
Yeah.
They close in May. I'm really concerned. I think we're gonna need to investigate a moratorium on our anti-camping ordinance in light of this. And so I'm hoping that maybe you'll be advocating for that as well, because our folks will be out there. And I don't want council to consider that. My questions are, regarding the zoning, is there a way that we can expedite that a little quicker?
That is expedited. That's how quickly it went through last time, and that's half time of what it typically takes.
How long did it take for our last?
183 days.
Okay.
No, sorry, 165. It was anticipated 183
Okay.
at an expedited rate.
A lot of different.
If it's okay, I'm just gonna take the floor for a minute. I'm gonna give it up to y'all who have been involved in it. I'm new to this, so I'm just getting up to speed. tell me why you chose the Quonset hut model.
Instead of a stick frame building,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, tell me about that.
cost, speed. It is
Yeah.
built somewhere else. That can be done not on site. They're exceptionally fast to go up. The cost of them are quite small in comparison to
It's
other
just not like
buildings.
the other presentation, and this is, I mean,
Yes.
it's very respectful, but it's
Yes.
like what the mayor presented, right? But exactly.
We are still using the Quonset, yes and no.
Tent.
It's a
Okay.
different structure and the interior is wildly different.
I would love to see what the inside is gonna look like, because I think some folks were concerned about it. I think the interior of the previous design was much better than having mats on the floor like Salvation Army has now.
These will have
But-
pods, these will have pods within it, but again, we have not done the design for this. Mainly because we need to understand what we can and can't do. We don't want to get so far over our skis that we have designed something and then we find that we can't develop.
And you're
it.
gonna give us that, you're gonna do all that for us.
100%.
We're gonna see the inside of it later.
You're gonna see, you're gonna see a
Um,
walkthrough of it.
And so the Quonset hut is different inside. Is it gonna have a metal roof or is it gonna be cloth roof? Tell me about the roof.
On
Metal
the
roof.
exterior, it'll be metal. On the faces of it, they will have a nice designed facade. So there'll be some wood, there'll be
Yep.
glass, there'll be doors, there'll be
Okay.
trellises on the exterior that provide entry.
I guess, I wanna make sure that we're gonna have a good, plan for, I've seen, like, there's a Quonset hut and y'all know the Quonset hut in Evergreen Park. How many different people have been in that Quonset hut? I think even Saboteur started up in there and he said he hated it because it kept dripping down from the metal ceiling onto the people. So I don't want.
That was
no, no.
also built in World War II.
We have to meet.
Sure.
We have to.
So.
When most
We have
were.
to meet current building codes.
Yes,
for both life
okay.
safety, like this will be fully finished on the interior. It's not gonna feel like an old airplane
Okay.
hangar on the inside. It will have drywall,
Fantastic.
it will have air conditioning, it will have heating, beautiful lighting, the whole thing.
She's so prepared for our questions, just super ready for this. I just want to make sure that our folks that are in there are gonna have a good, I mean, we are increasingly going to need not only heat, but air conditioning. So I just want to make sure that those folks are gonna be comfortable,
Absolutely.
regardless of the construction style of this. And then it looks like you've got that set to go first. And I just want to, I have to do my due diligence because it's something I brought up recently, but I just know that when I go to SARS, I'd say about once or twice a week, I find deer crossing the road right over at that gas station from that parcel. We have to stop at that intersection and wait for these deer to pass. And then sometimes they separate and they run across. And so I want to know if you're going to have a wildlife mitigation plan for this site as well.
We do not know yet.
Okay, but you will probably
At some-
mitigate for wildlife so that we don't have the.
If we need
There's
to,
lots of-
we're doing trip reports. I can ask and see if they'll put some deer trips in there as well. They won't do that.
Well, and you're
I-
gonna
I hear
have,
what you're saying.
you're gonna have raccoons there, so if you have a low barrier shelter with pets, you're gonna need to take care of the pets to make sure little pets aren't gonna have raccoons that are gonna eat their little pets.
And
So.
again, it's not gonna be a free-for-all for all of the animals just hanging out outside. This will
No,
be
I know.
fully, it's going to be a fully fenced-in
People are
community.
gonna be walking around, there's probably gonna be, you're gonna find that this is gonna be a space where people are gonna camp near as well, theoretically speaking. So, I just want us all to be aware of what this, there's a holistic thing, it's not just inside your complex.
Right.
It's on the outskirts that we need to mitigate for as well, wildlife mitigation, camping mitigation, we need to mitigate for, all kinds of things, I know, and I know Denise is gonna have, Denise has really taken on the burden of our affordable housing in District 2, and I know she stands ready to support in the ways that she can, and I can't wait to support you, Denise. And I'm really grateful for the work that y'all have done and the networking and the collaboration and this beautiful synergy that you've created in this. And so thank you for your hard work, everybody. And we're all in it together. So don't feel like the questions I'm asking are an attack.
I think these are all fair questions.
Okay.
We are here to answer those questions.
have
And I will tell you very
So,
quickly, if I don't know, I will say I don't know and I will.
Jennifer, one more question,
Yep.
and then this was the last slide except for let's let them finish their presentation.
Oh, I
wrap it up,
apologize.
Well,
then-
and we're
then
already
open
in
up
an
for
hour.
questions.
Yeah, and then, so did y'all do anything like an RFP for your design, for your architect? Okay, okay, thank you, that's it.
So again, floor is yours.
So, yeah, I think we're at the end, really. I just, I do want to say that this does require partnership. When we're talking about the camping around the site, we're very, very concerned about what happens side of this site, and we want to work and we will need to work very closely with the police department
And the school district.
and the school district. We've talked with the school district, we've talked with the library, we're through it. And we'll be talking with the police department. We've had some initial talks, but we're not saying let's just pick up what we see now outside the Salvation Army and move it. That's not what we're trying to do here. And we believe that accountability has to be a part of this. And so we're committed to that. And we need the city's help with that. And, we are committed to this neighborhood. We already have our in-house living with us right next door. So this is gonna happen, but it's gonna be way better for them and it's gonna be way better for our community. In ending, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Monica. She's been here in the community for a lot longer than I have. And this is not a new thing for us. But we think it's time.
I grew up here, product of the Bremerton schools, and been involved in these issues for a long time. This is the kind of model we looked at probably 8 years ago, but the community wasn't quite ready for it back then. And I think the time is now. And we also know that it works. I mean, while this is a shelter and it's a continuous day shelter, we've seen that it works at Pendleton Place. Of the 72 people that moved in, we only had, over the course of 3.5 years, only 8 evictions. And other than that, we've had people that have connected with long-term services. We've had people that have stabilized their health. We have people that have moved on to better housing. A supportive wraparound service model works. And it's going to take all of us. We're all in this together. And I just really appreciate the commitment of this community, the commitment of the county, the commitment of all of our partners here to make this happen. So we're excited to work with you guys.
And
So-
that is the end.
Now, thank you.
Thank
Now we'll
you.
open up for questions and we'll extend past our hour. This is a subject, obviously, but we'll go, Jennifer had her first round. So
Yep.
we'll go Anna and then Denise. And every council member will get one round and then we'll look at our time and see if we need to devote more time to it. So go ahead on.
That seems like a very normal protocol. I'd like to address the scariest part of what came up a few minutes ago, which is, Carl, when we were on the 5-year homelessness meeting earlier today, you assured us that Salvation Army will still be open when construction is planned to begin. Did I remember that accurately?
Yes, I spoken with Captain Dana and.
Okay.
He has expressed the fact that moving forward, they will stay open until their shelter is open, ready to go.
Good, because that really got my heart rate going. And really, I have almost no questions except to say, what a ton of work. On when you were saying up to $3 million a year for operating costs, what's the low end of that number?
It's a hard question. I mean, I don't even have a low number. I feel like maybe I don't see it happening for 2 million for sure. But I think us counting 3 million is the safe and smart way to do. You don't want to do this wrong.
Okay. And then the Salvation Army, that was my scariest one. The other thing is, have you run this design past other people who have lived in shelters like this? And they're okay with the basketball court being right next to the covered the covered outdoor shelter?
So I'm just gonna. speak to this.
Among other things.
No. I think, no, we have not. This was really meant from the standpoint of a feel. And it was a very early rendering, just to give an idea of how much space there was to have between these buildings. Things weren't shoved together. There's a lot of work that we need to do with the site planning. And since we have received finally some feedback from the city, as it relates to the pre-submittal conference, we will be making some decisions as to how that wants to fully be fleshed out. And we will be taking some feedback from some community members as to the things that might be the best approach for certain elements. And again, I think we also want feedback from the community. Is there parts of this parcel that the community would like to develop for, to your point, a park or something along those lines? Because we are not going to have, I'm not saying within that space, that this is a large parcel is what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is gonna be a community basketball court.
No,
Side joke.
Okay,
No,
oh, sorry, I was like,
Their park, she's gunning for a park.
I'm
in her
known for
district.
my part.
Yes.
well, but my
There's
point,
nothing bad
Blackout.
for you.
my point being, there's a lot of land, and what we're doing is creating buffers, and what do those buffers look like? And so having some community feedback is something we absolutely want to get into. That said, we had to have something a little bit more concrete to be able to start that conversation. Otherwise, you get 77 chefs in a kitchen and you get no meal at the end of it, right? So again, we will be looking to community feedback for how we approach certain elements. We also have a lot of people who have a lot of history in this, and so working from all of those different angles is going to be very important for us. And again, to your point, Jennifer, you will be seeing all of these. We just don't want to get so far down the road that we've got full designs and we're like, well, psych, we can't use those, and we just wasted all kinds of time and money. So this was just for an initial knee-jerk reaction to a planted out sort of landscape space, and understanding what those really look like will come to fruition later.
Let me try asking the question again.
Oh.
Perhaps I was unclear. Have you run this design past people who have lived in similar communities?
I meant that from a community
Oh, okay.
standpoint. Yes, I
Okay,
was from
sorry.
the end user, yes.
Okay,
That will be considered as part of this.
okay. That sounds great. I probably, if it were another 15 degrees cooler in here, I'd have another couple dozen questions, but as it is, thank you so much. This is really a ton of work, and whoever was doing your fundraising and grant writing, I congratulate you all.
Sorry.
I represent my district in this conversation, and I know that parcel well, and I was disappointed when it was selected. I had other aspirations, not a park, actually, but housing. Got great views, worth a lot of money, and thinking about what could have been developed on there and the loss of that tax money. But it wasn't sold, it wasn't right. So all of that is part of business. But as I said, I represent District 2. This is the first tonight that they're hearing about the location. I have not had a district meeting because I have been waiting to get approval to let my constituents know where it's going to be. And so we'll need to do that, but word is out now. And the prevention mitigation is not going to be part of that equation. And that's unfortunate. The timing of this, that's another element of misfortune. When you look, I just commend you all for the work you've done on this. It's much more extensive than I expected, certainly just me personally. The design, which is of course important, I want the shelter built. I want the people who are living out on the streets to have a shelter. And I'm disappointed it's taken this long, and I need to say that as a council person. I understand the reasons, but I'm very disappointed. I also know that there was a shitload of money that came through that started a lot of new programs, and that your agencies are shouldering that on top of what you used to do. And now you're going to shoulder this. So I want to tell you, I understand the responsibility that you feel. I really do. It's been frustrating for us. I get triggered when I see words like city driven. Because I think, as our council president pointed out, once we hand this over to you, it's yours. Okay, so it's, the city hasn't been driving. We want to support it. I want it done. Maybe before I leave council, you know, that'd be nice. So my frustration is evident in the choice of lots right across the street from the brand new elementary school. There's 2 elementary schools on that property now.
I don't know exactly.
It's right across the street. Sheridan, if you drive by, the shelter will be on the right. There's the,
Which am I on Sheridan?
you're,
Let me show you.
yeah.
Look at a
We're
map.
heading away from 302.
It's where they used to land the helicopter.
I wonder if you can pull up
From
like
the
Google
helicopter.
Maps maybe.
You know where that is. Here,
Big,
okay.
The ball field, Legion
yeah.
Field is right across the street, and then the
Across
new, yes.
But not behind SARS.
No.
Where the
No.
ball
It's
fields are.
across from,
It's across Sheridan.
it's that empty.
Yeah.
South of Sheridan.
Yeah. Yes, it's across the street. I believe our Oyster Bay was across the street too. A street, especially with a rapid flashing beacon now going to be installed on Cherry, isn't that difficult, you know, to get across. I want to support this. I'm looking at the 3 million and saying, wow, that's a lot more than the YWCA's budget. But I know it's a different animal. And I know that you'll be careful with that. I trust you.
Right.
I trust you.
I thought that was.
I really do. And I want to support you. When we start talking about piecemeal zoning, taking a piece out of a plan, that's what happened with Evergreen Point. Sound familiar? So let's be prepared for that. That's one element of this, is what we call spot zoning. Okay, there's going to be some backlash. There's going to be some pushback on that. We need to be prepared for it. I'm really sad that we don't have anyone, I don't think, from DCD here. Yep. We don't have our finance director here. And we don't, well, we have Chance, don't we? Do we still have Chance? Yeah. Thank you, Chance. We talk about design standards, you know, but when I'm thinking of my constituents wanting to welcome this new aspect of our community, because that's what I've been wanting to do, is build support for this within our community. It's going to be harder now. So when we start asking about that, we're going to need to make sure that nothing gets compromised. If we need a bike lane on that street, you're putting in a bike lane. You know, if you need sidewalk improvements, yeah, that's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. Can we help with that? And I hope Chance will, you know, our director, cutting, you know, whatever we can do ourselves, that's great. But don't make me tell my constituents that they're not going to get the same level of service because of this than anywhere else. I won't do that. I can't do that in all honesty. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing, not necessarily, I've seen a lot of this, you know, I know that the model, you know, all of that. Again, you know, looking on the outside in, we want privacy, you know, for our folks there. Obviously security and all that's going to cost money, but I just want to say to whoever's listening, as Councilmember Chamberlain just said, that this is it. We don't have any choice. We really don't. If we want a shelter in the next year and a half, this is it. And that's not a good place to be. That's not a good place to feel. So I hope that our city will work more closely with you now that things are really, you know, getting real. And I'm sure that council is gonna do whatever we can, to support you, and most importantly, our houseless community. That's the bottom line. So, how many lives have been impacted or will be impacted without that shelter until then? And I know that weighs on you, but it really weighs on me, if I'm mistaken. So, I don't have any questions. I really don't. I have questions for our finance director and our DCD director. But they'll be back and we'll get those questions answered then. So thank you, my friends and colleagues, for doing what you do best. And I'm sorry I had to share a little bit of frustration there. Don't normally do that with these folks.
All right, so I don't know who else has their hand up. Who wants to go
Jeff
next?
and
Jeff?
me and you.
Rock, paper, scissors.
No, you go.
Let's see. No, I think, I've obviously been part of the weekly conversations that's been going on. So I'm up to speed on a lot of it, but I want to attest, to the timeline that the group as a whole, I think, is equally frustrated, right? And I can say it was not our community partners that the reason things took long, for this particular parcel. Really grateful to the organization it came from, but it was a large organization that did not move quickly. So but we're here now, which is great. The operations budget, I know when it presented in January 2024, the estimate back then was 2 to 3 million. So it's right in line. So I think it's good to keep in mind that operations budget has always been before us. It's always been something we need to think about and plan for. And the amount really hasn't changed from a year and a half ago on what we need to work towards. The one kind of clarifying question too is in terms of timeline. Something I like about this model is the scalability, and I just want to make it clear that you all have in your head of a minimal viable product of working on the low barrier can go first. It's independent from the pallet and vice versa, and right?
Yeah.
I want to speak to just some of that on the flexibility.
Yeah, super quickly, just on that. This project itself, I have so many things I want to talk with you about, Denise. But beyond that, it is scalable and it is sequential from the standpoint of getting the Quonset huts in as quickly as possible, getting that emergency shelter in as quickly as possible. That is our paramount item. That one does have more permits though. I just need to qualify that. Every building requires a building permit. We have to have a site development permit. And so the temporary encampment, while that could actually probably get in quicker, our focus is making sure that the shelter is going. We are going to run all of these as close as possible, but also staggered in a way that one doesn't weigh down the review process of another. So that has been my hope and plan for how we approach this, both from a land use and planning standpoint, as well as a building permitting standpoint, looking at how we make sure that this is as streamlined as possible so we can at least get one up. And even if it's just one to begin with, and we have the second one coming, we finish one out. We are also going to be looking at trying to, scale. We get the economy of scale. So if we've got an insulator doing one, it's best to do it both at the same time. But understanding if we have to do something to make sure that we get one done first, we are going to be looking at that. This also has the ability to be scaled up. If you find if a recession is coming, as homelessness maybe grows, we also have the ability to move forward with expanding that if it's necessary, because we do have a larger piece of land. None of us want that to be the case. We want to find a solution so we have less homelessness, but we have to be very, very clear with the reality of what is happening right now and the increased number of people that are unhoused. And so this has the ability to just address the minimum that we have set forth, as well as grow as needed in a very, very smart way. Sorry.
No, thank you for clarifying that. It's good. And two last things is to give some kudos on the communications ahead of time. I mean, I do want to, I wasn't on the slides, but I've gone to a number of other district meetings to talk about the model. I know in those you've gotten feedback on concerns from people and said, although the specific parcel wasn't mentioned, it was, hey, if this was near you, what would your concerns be, right? What would help mitigate those concerns? And so I know you've already done a good amount of initial feedback. And I'll just close with, we've all got work to do. Let's echo it, right? This is desperately needed in our community. We need to work with our state partners. We need to figure out the funding challenges. Those have always been there. But I know that everyone in this room working together can get it done. No doubt in my mind. So just thank you, and let's all go forward as a team.
Good, Jane.
Okay, so first, thank you. I know this is incredible amount of work. Past couple of years, you've, all gotten together weekly to work on this. I'm really, really concerned about the community outreach. And I reread the article that was in the Kitsap Sun when there was a large meeting up by, I can't remember the name of your,
Swing set mall.
no. Your housing development, Bay Vista. And all those same things, and yet more, are going to be asked by the community. And you've got a pretty short timeline in here to do that. And I know Joe came to a community meeting that I had, but that was back in February. And frankly, the graphics were much different and not, they weren't as all encompassing as you have now. I'm really worried about the amount of time you have for community outreach. And if that isn't done properly, and we have to talk to the people who don't want it, not the people who do want it.
Yes.
It seems to be who has been talked to the
So
most.
many.
So, I mean, we really have to, that has to be the major goal. And then I've been watching some really disappointing talks on different executive actions from the federal government. And if I understand it right, it doesn't appear to be funding for Housing First anymore. And that would mean low barrier shelters. So is that going to be a big hurdle that we can't get over? Or is it all going to be state and local funding until we run out? Okay.
In the course of building this out, you never put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Mhm.
So understanding different models, understanding different service delivery models, housing first, might be the pendulum swing of one administration, but understanding what the concepts of people first models look like. And we've actually baked in some of that into the roots of this operations model in that manifold service delivery that I've expressed in those community outreaches. That's actually more of a people first approach, which is what this more about this administration is kind of leaning towards. And so we are actually looking at pathways, which is an FCS tool that you saw for our funding sources. And with utilizing pathways, it's actually more of a holistic approach. So when we do screen when the person comes into the congregate shelter, we address what their needs are. Some are employment needs, some are substance use needs, some are domestic violence exposure, and some are mental health issues. And so we look at a holistic approach, and then we deliver the services that person needs. So we've already kind of baked that into the back end, and to give us flexibility and to not let us be beholden to any one administration, depending on which way they depend on.
Okay, and just one thing to add to this, just talking about funding. Sorry.
Oh, hello, who are you, sir?
Sorry.
What's-
I'm Joe Crane from Cited.
Hello, Mr. Eyes.
So the secret here is leveraging funding, so it's not all on the city or the county. So remember what happened with Mills Crossing. The county and the city stepped in really quick, and then Commerce jumped in with 6.3 million, and then we got funding from here. We're already on this. So So as the slide was presented, you saw that Department of Health number. What that really means is Department of Health said, oh, let's do an experimental project around the shelter and around unhoused folks. 3 counties were selected and we were one of them because they know our collaboration. So they're like, ask for what you want. How many people do you want? And that's not a Commerce thing, although the recommendation came from Commerce. The Department of Health has that money. So at the same time, as our team mentioned, a housing trust fund, hopefully that money is going to come because they all recognize what we're doing here. It's a county model, and that's a secret. We're not asking for everything from the city or for the county. What we're trying to do is leverage the relationships and leverage the money. Okay.
Okay. So that's good to know. So another thing, Salvation Army needs to, for lack of a better term, kick out people who, a lot of them have severe mental health problems. Is the shelter going to be able to help them and to keep them safe and to keep the other people there safe? Is that?
That is one of the reasons why we're gonna have, Kentucky Mental Health Services is gonna have an on-site presence, because we're just, we run the mobile crisis outreach team, we have the crisis triage facility, run the adult inpatient unit. At the end of the day, unless it rises to certain standards of danger to self or others, we can't force somebody involuntarily into treatment.
Right.
But the root of this type of model is that there will be community behavior standards. There has to be.
Right.
Because if you can't hold folks accountable to stay in community, then it becomes a free for all. So there has to be standards, and that is, we know that that's needed. So we will always try to engage folks into getting them into substance use and having that ongoing presence of staff where they build relationships with them, they get stability, they're not coming and going every single day. That's when you can build the relationships to actually engage people and get people to a place where they want to get into services. But at the end of the day, if they don't, and out of that mental illness or substance use, they're unable to stay in community, then they're not a good fit for the low barrier shelter, nor would they have, and that's the same standard that I'm sure Salvation Army uses. There is no, if you don't do that, then it becomes exactly what people say about Housing First, which is not what we're intending to do. We moving forward with an accountability model, and we know that it works. So I don't know if that
So then you
answers your
could
question.
maybe free up space at Pendleton Place for somebody that really needed.
Ultimately,
more.
Pendleton Place is permanent housing, and so folks at Pendleton Place, most of our folks have been there since the beginning. Other folks have moved on to other types of housing. This is different in that it's a shelter, but it's going to have access to pathways to permanent housing. Ultimately, we want to get people into transitional housing, permanent housing. We don't want people to be in a situation where they're living, in shelter forever. And that's why having on-site services is going to be so important.
Okay, then my last major question is your budget based on the city deviating from our standards for the site development? Because that seems really low.
Yes. So that was the site development was based on tying into utilities, including, sewer, power, water, all of that, grading, basic development of the site. Deviation from or requests for support for things like frontage improvements were not included in that original budget.
Yeah, because that's 2 million.
And
at least.
and that is why, again, part of the right-of-way dedication is providing land to the city. So getting some, this is where the back and forth conversation will happen with Public Works. Will they foot part of the bill associated with street frontage improvements as a quid pro quo for a right-of-way deviation? Because it's a lot of land that they're requesting. It's quite a bit of land that they would like.
It's pretty common, especially, on arterials. It's not an uncommon thing for major right-of-way dedication.
Understood, but it's, right now, it's not done. It hasn't been done. It's a requested element. And so, again, it is a portion of land that would not be used. And so this is a conversation that happens quite a bit when cities request right of ways to be put through parcels that are private.
Okay.
There's no slam dunk on this one by any means. But there's, there are things that we can do, and there is monies for certain parts of that frontage improvements, landscaping, things like that. That is included in there. Changing curb cuts, widening sidewalks, that's a different story. And there are sidewalks that are there. The other part of this also has to do with how soon are they going to do other connecting frontage improvements. It's up to the director. So there are pathways forward. And to Denise's point, we are not looking to not do work that somebody else might do. We are trying to create a path forward that is good for the community, but doesn't stop the development of this project. And that is where we are going to have to work with the city with the DCD, with Public Works, as our partners to get this to go through, because maybe the level it might go to with a for-profit development might be different, because all of a sudden you've got a different kind of community and you've got like little nodes here. And to Denise's point, she wanted to see a different kind of development. I get it. There's a lot of opportunity for that site. And there are going to be parts of the site that we are hoping to cordon off that will be done for future development that may lend themselves to greater frontage that can be part of this discussion. I think the thing is this is going to have multi-phases over the course of the next 10 years as it relates to this parcel. And so how do we make sure we get this element taken care of, understanding that the community is going to want further development as well? And much like CF funding, is there a means of doing it over the course of a few years versus holding this up so that we don't have something now that the city needs from the standpoint of shelter? So we will be working with all of the city, DCD, Public Works, City Council, to determine with the DRB to determine what is going to be A, good for this community, but B, that doesn't tank the project and make it so that we can't build this. So there is no intent not to do some of this. We just are going to have to work with everybody. And so to your point, the development did not have full frontage improvements for this site as part of that, because you're right, it's another $2 million.
Easily. All right, well, I really appreciate what you're doing, and all the work you put in. I do have concerns about where the money's coming from, but we have budget negotiations next month, so. But that's, how much are you asking for the city? There,
I mean,
a ballpark?
I think the question, obviously, the more money the city can get, then the more security we have to move forward, and then our boards have to move forward. But I think the real question is, what is your priority? And if this is your priority, the only reason that the Republican Housing Authority is this because this is a priority. So I guess, if you want a number, I have to think about that and I can get it to you, but, right now, what we know is we have the bed rate. That's what we have. Yeah. And that's,
Yeah,
to $1 million. So.
I'm not trying to pitch on this.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
know.
sorry. It wasn't my
It's
intention.
okay.
I think it would be helpful to have that though, especially also if there's a consideration of that if the numbers for site development are excluded from that, and there's an expectation that the city could do the site improvements ourselves, that we get those numbers hopefully within the.
I mean, I think about $1 million would be a really strong commitment that would help us deliver other dollars. I really do.
For operations
Yes.
per year. I was for that piece. And then also the piece on what part of the site development are you expecting the city to?
It's more the frontage improvements and what the directors, so this is a chicken and the egg type situation here, because the director is the one who gets to determine what frontage improvements are required.
Well, the code does.
Well, yes and no, but there are portions of the code that state that the director has the ability to determine what level of frontage improvements are going to be required for this site. That is what the code states, as well as their ability to deviate from frontage improvements dependent upon further frontage improvements that are on adjacent sites associated with it. So there is some language in the code that we will be meeting with DCD to discuss further as that relates to it. Because again, if we get a right-of-way dedication through the middle of that property, that creates a lot split. So all of a sudden our frontage requirements are less. So there is a lot of chicken and the egg here. This is not a linear path. There's 13 different ways that I can move these shells to find the right way forward. And I don't know that yet because there's going to be a lot of input that we've got from both Public Works as well as DCD and the director as it relates to what we're going to do. But I hear you, and we will be able to put real numbers to that once we have a little bit more solid direction as it relates to how big this parcel actually will end up being with a right-of-way dedication and what kind of development is going to be needed for those frontage improvements.
Okay, Michael, did you have any comments?
I think good. I've had some that we've gotten answered and stuff, but thank you for getting through this with us in this heat. And yeah, I think we've got some work to do as we all do. We'll do it together.
I have a few questions. So first of all, as currently planned, how many individuals would the site host?
80 beds in the shelter currently, and then 30 to 40 pallets.
So 110,
120.
The $3 million operational costs. Let's say you can only raise $1 million first year. This, before you contribute or before you put shovels in the ground, are you going to have the first year or two's operations committed, or are we gonna, what are you gonna do?
That would be preferable to have the first year or two committed. Yes, that's what we would like. If we don't have that, I think our board will guide us as to what kind of risk they want our agencies to take to move forward with building them. What we are, the Bremerton Housing Authority, we are going to purchase this land regardless. We have the state money to do that, and my board is committed to doing that and taking on that risk. I'm not going to speak for my board as far as what they will guide me to do if there is not operational money in the ground. I know that they're highly supportive of this, and all of us individually are going to put everything we can into getting this done and built, with or without that. But I can't speak for what our board will allow us to do.
No worries, but there has to be a plan B.
Yeah.
Pivot to something. It's
And
within the housing authority's domain.
Absolutely, and it's scalable. Like, we have thought about this. Well, what if we only have this amount? What should we do? Should we just do college? Should we just do something, or do we do nothing? And I think that continues to be a conversation between all of us as well. This is what we have. What do we want to do?
And then your project requires a zoning code change regardless because of where it's located. The pallets are only, you can do it one time, it's temporary for 183 days. Anything over that requires a zoning change. That's my understanding.
That's correct. And we did that previously.
Sure.
And this law just so happened to be on the literal outskirt of it, which is part of the reason, even a suggestion of an amendment to the comp plan, because it is on the edge. It's not like stuck in the middle.
Sure. So my concern is this would have to go to the planning commission. We'd have to get, whatever the planning commission recommends. And then it goes to next year's city council for them to decide yes or no based on public input and all that, planning commission guidance or whatever. But before that occurs, do you anticipate putting shovels in the ground?
No. Zoning code language
does
change is starting immediately. Unless city council's like, we think we can do this, that zoning code language change, we're already in the process of working on the SEPA for it and the narrative. So,
Still do the
But-
congregation.
but we'd still do the congregate shelter first. This parcel allows for the shelter, the emergency shelter. It doesn't allow for the long-term temporary encampment permit.
Okay.
So that, there is still something that can be done here. That said, we are already moving forward with a lot of the elements that we can move forward with, understanding the time frame for it. And that's why, again, we are pushing at a very aggressive schedule in order to try and minimize how much longer we are waiting, just given how long that we were waiting for finding the right parcel, finding a parcel. To be frank, I need to throw that out there. Finding a parcel was very, very difficult. We visited a billion different spots. But, so we are doing as much as we can to fast track those elements that are going to take 180 days.
Right, and then just to be frank or clear, so there's no misunderstanding. The city's 2026 budget has no money allocated for operation costs for shelter. The city's commitment was the ARPA money that we signed an ILA. I think you know all this. So as we leave this meeting tonight, there are no promises going forward that we're going to give a nickel. We're not saying we're not, but as of tonight, is we have to go through the budget process and we have to go through the vote of the council before we committed any fund. So just want to check it's clear. Now, council, we've already gone past. I'm willing to. I'm hoping we don't do a round of 7 questions. I won't have any more. But do you have any burning ones that you need to ask, or else we'll
Really short.
Jennifer and then Jeff, and then hopefully we're done by 7.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna do for everybody here. I'm gonna put 3 minutes on my timer and it's gonna go off and I'm gonna shut up when it goes off, okay?
Or
All
they
right.
will.
So,
Or we
I
will.
can do that all the time.
yeah, well, you're president, right? So, okay, I'm gonna start. Now, here's what I asked before I start this. You've been very concise and clear about your answers. I need quick answers so we can get through this and we're gonna be done with it. All right. So, the first thing is a statement that I just want to say. I kind of want to piggyback on something that you said, which is, you know, like that there's views, but like unhoused folks deserve views too. They also deserve bike lanes. They deserve wheelchair access on their sidewalks. They deserve all those things that a regular development has. So I am absolutely in support of what you're saying, not just for your constituents, but for the unhoused folks that are there. So just a statement on that. I want to make sure that you're going to have, medical respite, medical triage for folks that are like, what about folks that are incontinent, folks that are being released from the hospital? Just a yes or no, are you gonna have that service available at the Quonset huts?
I can,
Yes, thank you. Okay, are we talking about, when you want to talk about the fair value of the land and the right-of-way acquisition, the right-of-way acquisition, I'm curious about the fair value of the land. Is that because when there's a right-of-way acquisition, the city pays for that land, right? So is that not going to be enough to pay for the tie-in to the services? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, it's going to be enough.
Sorry,
wanna go ahead?
I do not know because I need to talk to the director about what exactly needs to be done. So that is going to be the question,
Okay,
but that is the intent.
so people in their cars, will they be able to drive in with their cars and?
Yes.
Okay. And are you gonna connect with services that can assist with people fixing their cars if it's a simple fix?
Don't know.
I made that. Yeah.
Okay, and so, I wanna know that, is there a water reservoir in this property?
Not this property.
Okay, all right,
Adjacent.
adjacent. Okay, and we need to make sure that water reservoir is also protected, right? So,
Yes.
but it is adjacent, so you're gonna need to be looking at that holistic, view of, there's gonna be people camping all around. I am confused about the difference between this property and the Oyster Bay property. So in a minute or less, tell me the difference between the Oyster Bay property and this property.
Flat land.
Okay,
Major issue right there. There is not going to be massive amounts of excavation. It's already flat. There are quick tie-ins to almost all of the utilities. There's one question. There's a lot more space. There is the ability to provide quite a bit of room. You're not jammed in there. The other thing is there's a lot more buffer from all of the other adjacent parcels as a result of the size of this. And we are taking that space to make sure that those
And-
buffers exist.
Bree, what was your biggest complaint when you came to city council prior to being contracted by this group as to what the problem was with the previous property? Your biggest complaint came to us.
There was no operations plan for it, as well as I did not believe that the numbers actually worked from the standpoint of what that land development was gonna
It
take.
didn't have to do with like parks or anything like that. That was your.
It was proximity to,
Right. Okay, that's it. 4 seconds to spare. Thank you for your time.
felt like a lightning round, I'm gonna be honest.
That's what we do sometimes.
Well, you know what, Jeff, and then Anna, and then at 7 o'clock, we're.
I have one question now.
Just as we talk about operations funding, what's the total annual operating cost of Salvation Army Shelter right now? Ballpark
It's $220,000 a month.
per month. Yeah. So per year is around 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not too different than what we're looking at here.
Is the county gonna pay that for operations of the shelter?
The money we used for Salvation Army was ARPA funding. And so now they're working on the per bed rate, so they'll be going, right now they do 3 meals a day, we pay for everything that way. When the funding runs down to where they're on the per bed rate, there'll be more of the overnight, they won't do the 3 meals a day. So it'll be more of an overnight shelter as opposed to.
What does that equal out to annually when it makes that conversion?
Taking
Right
your
now,
time.
we've got them at 558,000 before that. Based on their bed, based on the number of beds and current bed rates that we have.
Would the county contemplate
She's
that
taking
shelter
his time.
and then this shelter being like in addition to, or is it instead of?
No, it's instead of, yeah, Salvation Army was never designed to be a shelter, they're only doing it out of the kindness of their heart.
Jeff, did you agree?
No, that's my only question.
Okay. Anna, you have the honor of the last question. It's gonna be a good.
I hope so.
All right.
I thought Denise raised a really good point, and I was wondering, Mayor, why, since zoning is so critical to this, why someone from DCD is not at this meeting?
The middle conference in the reply from the city is very clear. And so I heard some comments about director's discretion. Directors cannot play with winners and losers. Everything will have a precedence. Any decision made will have a precedent to be based upon, including the current law, current standards. So it's not a law that can be waived. And frankly, what questions would you like me to relay?
I have been given a time limit, so I won't go into that right now. But it would have been just, I was wondering why they weren't here, because I think all of us would have had questions. Okay,
No worries. Thank you, Mayor, for your response. We're good.
thank you.
Hey, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for meeting with us. Appreciate it. I got 6:56. We'll come back at 7:10.